Everyone. You started recording? Okay. Hello, everyone. I am Tyra Smith, the Toledo Club National Association Negro Business and Professional Women's Club President. I will be the MC for this evening. We will be sharing some very important information pertaining to the awareness of domestic violence. And we hope that you have brought others to share and to join in with us today on this cause as we can continue to move forward with the purpose and make every strategic impact program count, as is the acronym for SIP. We would like the president of the Negro Association of the National Association of Negro Professional League, the Mommy Bay Club, Ms. Poston, to do our welcome. Ms. Poston.
Good afternoon, ladies. And
Good
if there's any
afternoon.
gentlemen on as well, I welcome you on behalf of the Mommy Bay Club of National Association of Negro Business and Professional Women's Clubs Incorporated, and all the collaborative teams that are represented here today. I would like to welcome you. We all know that domestic violence affects so many people on a daily basis. And it is events like this that bring awareness to our community. We encourage you to share this information, and we cannot get tired of sharing and talking about domestic violence, because our youth, our elderly, both men and women's lives are depending on us to make sure that this information is out and that there's laws that are passed to help support women, men, elderly, and our youth with any domestic violence issues that may occur. So again, I welcome you, and I hope that you enjoy this program that's been prepared for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Poston. Next, we will have a special prayer by Ms. Brenda L. Kennard Hostley.
As we go before the throne of grace, Father God, we come boldly to your throne because the concerns that we have that we're lifting up in this program, this program event will be something that's going to empower and bring enlightenment to those participating. Our collaborative efforts coming together as organization, collaborating with those that are advocates for domestic violence. We are coming together. We are coming in the name of the Lord Jesus to bring that awareness and bless each and every panelist, the efforts that they are doing, and our organizations that have come to collaborate in the efforts that we're doing. All things you will perfect, Lord, and you will bring to a conclusion those things that concerns us. So in the name of Jesus, we just thank you. So be it. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Ms. Brenda, for the inspirational prayer. We will now have Ms. Andrea Price of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority and Inc., Zeta Alpha Omega chapter, to give you the purpose of the domestic violence workshop. Ms. Andrea?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for spending your time with us today. We, the members of the National Association of Negro Business and Professional Women's Club, the Toledo Club, and the Mommy Bay Club, Top Ladies of Distinction Toledo Chapter, YWCA of Northwest Ohio, the Domestic Violence Shelter, the National Sorority of Phi Beta Kappa Incorporated, Beta Gamma Chapter of Toledo, Family and Child Abuse Prevention Center, and Cora's Mission. We're all here today to welcome you. The purpose of our collaborative organization bringing this workshop to the community is to bring awareness and available resources to individuals directly or indirectly affected by intimate partner violence, also known as domestic violence. It is abuse or aggression that occurs in romantic relationships. Intimate partner refers to both current and formal spouses and dating partners. It can vary in how often it happens and how severe it is. It can range from one episode of violence that could have a lasting impact to chronic and severe attacks over multiple years. Women are more likely to be victims of intimate partner violence or domestic violence, according to the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, known as CDC. About 1 in 4 women and nearly 1 in 10 men have experienced sexual violence, physical violence, and stalking by their partner during their lifetime or at least have reported it. Remember, domestic violence is a distinct crime and can come in various forms, including psychological aggression, which can be verbal and nonverbal, and economic abuse, which is controlling resources to limit financial access. One of our members in Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Shatina Davenport Mitchell of Saginaw Township in Michigan, was killed on Thursday, September 30th, 2021 by her husband. So we ask you not to be silent. When you see something, do something. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Andrea. That was awesome. We will now have a brief commercial on domestic violence.
Operator 911, where's the emergency? 127 Premier. Okay, what's going on there? I'd like to order a pizza for delivery. Ma'am, you reached 911. This is an emergency line. Large with half pepperoni, half mushroom. You know you've called 911. This is an emergency line. How long it'll be? Okay, ma'am, is everything okay over there? Do you have an emergency or not? Yes. And you're unable to talk because... Right. Is there someone in the room with you? Just say yes or no. Yes. It looks like I have an officer about a mile from your location. Are there any weapons in your house? No. Can you stay on the phone with me? No. See you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. We have now come to the portion of this program that will either touch your hearts or it will be close to your hearts. I have the pleasure of introducing our panelists and a testimonial panelist as well. I will start with our first panelist, Ms. Cassandra Durfee. Ms. Cassandra, the Director of Victim Services, overseeing the Victim Service Program at FCAPC, received her bachelor's at the University of Toledo and has been employed with Family and Child Abuse Prevention Center for 10 years and started her career there a year prior in an intern in the Domestic Violence Court Advocacy Program. She is currently the chair of the Lucas County Domestic Violence Task Force and the Lucas County DV Task Force Fatality Review Board. She sits on the Ohio Men's Action Network Steering Committee, has a passion for empowering women in her community and helping them to live healthy, violent-free lives. Outside of her professional work, she enjoys spending time with her 3 daughters, playing with her 2 dogs, and hanging with her partner. She loves outdoors, playing volleyball and softball, and she has developed a new joy of long distance running. Ms. Durfee.
Hi, thank you for having me. Like she said, I'm Cassandra Durfee. I'm the Director of Victim Services at Family and Child Abuse Prevention Center. I oversee programming that addresses family violence in a holistic approach. What that means is we see women, children, adults, and batterers along with victims. DV is a serious problem, and I do apologize. That lovely dog I was talking about that I truly enjoy, she's just whining at me, so that's what you hear in the background. But I oversee that programming because we know that DV is a serious problem in Lucas County. 1 out of 4 women, as previously stated, are affected by domestic violence. Nearly 1/3 of American women are physically or sexually abused by a husband or a boyfriend at some point in their lifetime. DV is the leading cause of injury to women in the US, more than car accidents, muggings, and rapes combined. DV is a crime, as I heard somebody state prior, when a physical assault or a threat has occurred, that threat causing the victim to fear for their safety. The relationships include blood relationships, brother, sister, mother, son, one time have been married, share a child, live together, have mailed addressed coming to the home, have been considered to have been dating, which is new language that was added in 2018 to include that if you've went on one date, so it's no longer just, having to have been together for like 6 months or a certain prior time period. So that was included as of Marcy's Law in the Ohio State Constitution for 2018. So domestic violence advocates are available at court to help. They provide information on DV and the legal options available to you at court. They accompany the victims to the court proceedings. They provide actual support during those proceedings. They assist in safety planning each and every time they come in contact with a survivor, and they link those survivors to the community resources that they need. 86% of women who receive a protection order state that the abuse has either stopped or greatly reduced. Research also shows that victims who work with advocates have a more positive outcome, reduced risk of re-abuse, and report higher quality of life because they have little to no difficulty accessing those community resources that they need. The resources empower them to feel like they can make those decisions that they maybe once did not feel like they could make. In 2020, we unfortunately had 3 domestic violence related deaths. Toledo Police Department had over 9,380 calls of domestic violence. 6,199 of those reports were for DV. 1,613 of those resulted in a domestic violence arrest, and only 375 of those were felonies. So at Toledo Municipal Court, there are 4 domestic violence advocates to help navigate the 4 floors and 8 courtrooms. They help victims navigate that complex and intimidating system. They help them with their feelings about their abusers. They help them with their fear of safety from the unknown, the fear of the courtroom, the intimidation, the stigma and the humiliation that's associated with the perception of being a victim. Those advocates at Toledo Municipal Court in 2020 served 814 victims. They attended almost 2,000 court proceedings. And as you all are aware, we were on a low call volume at that time for Toledo Police Department. They were also on a do not arrest policy for a majority of 2020. So those numbers are huge with those things being in place. With over 50% of the women receiving public assistance in Lucas County reporting at one point in time that they were a victim of domestic violence, CAPC has contracted with Lucas County Department of Job and Family Services for a program called Project Access. So although that's not court advocacy, that's your domestic violence case management or community advocacy that I believe I heard prior. Augustine's name was mentioned in the press release. So that was the position that Augustine Abbott held at Family and Child Abuse Prevention Center. And Project Access is domestic violence case management for women who are going through or have been a victim of domestic violence. And so it's just a linkage of community resources, ongoing safety planning, case planning, linkages between other community resources in our community that serve victims or survivors of domestic violence. So Job and Family Services, Lucas County Children's Services, the Mental Health and Recovery Board, the Homelessness Board, just kind of depending on what resources were accessed. And then our Project Access program also kind of goes into what we're hoping to bring back very, very soon is our group, support group for survivors. And the Project Access coordinator will also coordinate those support groups. What we know we desperately need in our community again, for folks to be able to come together as peers and support one another. Us professionals only know so much. It's those peers that help each other through those hard times that they feel like professionals just can't touch. So I think I've reached my 5 to 7 minutes. I hope I was able to give you guys some good statistics, some good information, some good resources about Family and Child Abuse Prevention Center, kind of what we do, what I do, and hopefully if you have any questions at the end, I'll answer them.
Thank you, Ms. Derby. That was a plethora of good information. Nice job. We very, very much so appreciate that. Keep up your work and continue to be an encyclopedia and a dictionary for domestic violence. Awesome job for that. I will right now, I have the pleasure of introducing you to Ms. Sonia Swain Perdue. And we will collaborate the two, Ms. Kalia Behringer, because what they have is a collaborative effort and passion when it comes to Ms. Core Mission. So I will read Ms. Sonia Swain Perdue, a brief bio of her, and then I will go right into Ms. Behringer. So Ms. Sonia Perdue is a 30-year-old veteran in cosmetology, in her cosmetology field. She is a mother of two wonderful she's a mother of two women and a grandmother of three. She has earned 2 master's degrees, one in counseling and one in organizational management. She is a former owner of I Think Beautiful Academy of Cosmetology. Prior to closing in 2019, she graduated over 60 minority students in the field of cosmetology, natural hair, nails, and autistics. I hope I said that right. She currently is the owner of Beautiful Salon and Beautiful Medical Transportation. She and her sister created Core's Mission after the loss of a stylist of domestic violence in 2016. I am moving to Ms. Behringer. Ms. Behringer, born and raised in Toledo, Ohio, Kalia has been a licensed advanced cosmetologist and an independent contractor for 20 years. She is a former owner of Unique Inspirations Beauty Salon. Kalia reunited with her sister, Ms. Perdue, at Beautiful Salon, and she continues to serving in her career. Kalia, along with her sister, started the organization Core, C-O-R-A Mission, in honor of their beautiful friend, Miss Core Corbin. What I would like for both of them to do is have words together. Ladies, you have the floor. Ms.
Hello?
Behringer.
Okay, you can hear me?
I can.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Kalia. Sonia will join in afterwards. I'm going to speak on our events and past and future events, and then Sonia will come on and she will speak on our purpose and a little bit about Core's story.
Okay, can you hear me first? Can anybody hear me?
We
Yeah.
can hear you.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Hello, everybody. Okay,
Hello, Ms.
continue.
Sonia.
Go ahead, Clea.
Okay. So past events, we have hosted our annual Purple Ball, which we actually just had one this past October. And the theme of that ball is a masquerade theme. And Miss Augustine Abbott was our guest speaker every year. Unfortunately, this year, we honored her for our Purple Ball, and we had a lot of people that she has touched their lives come out and speak on her behalf. And that's another thing that we will continue on annually. We do Thanksgiving and Christmas baskets. We adopt families. as well as we adopt graduating seniors, one male and female. And we also have back to school drives. Cassandra and Andrea, they gave excellent insight on what DV is and may look like. And so what we are trying to do is take that and use an application as far as reaching out to these communities as we're adopting these families. And as we're servicing those people that sit in our chairs, and we want to reach out to other beauticians and barbers to give them signs to look for when someone is sitting in your chair, and possibly, hand them a card, not necessarily because some of us are not educated properly to do that, but we can give the resources to them. And if we can spread the word to other beauticians and barbers, they can do that as well, to say, hey, you're not alone. Here goes some information that you can reach out to get some help. Another thing moving forward is we're looking into self-defense and self-esteem classes for young women and for young ladies to, all women, I should say, just to rebuild their strength and to build their self-esteem to encourage to fight back mentally, physically, as well as spiritually. So those are a couple of the events. I'm gonna glance down at my paper to make sure that I said all the points that I wanted to do as far as past events and events. And I think I have it covered. So I'm gonna switch it over to Sonia. Thank you.
Okay. Can you guys can still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm on the road, so I'm coming home. So I may dip in and dip out. But we started Cora's mission because when Cora was killed, the one thing that we noticed is that people don't want to talk about something that makes them uncomfortable. So our job is to keep her living for the rest of our lives and save a life. So that's originally why we started this, because we really noticed that although we knew that Cora was killed in domestic violence situation, nobody wanted to talk about it. It's not something people want to talk about, even when it touches their lives. So it is our job to make it known that it happens right there in your own home, right there in your own community, right there next door to you, right there in our chair as we're doing someone's hair. They or their children might be affected by domestic violence. And what we've learned from Cora's death is that domestic violence starts off way earlier than we like to admit, in junior high and in high school. So if we're waiting to help women of 18 and older, we are remiss because we have passed up children that we could have helped at a younger age. So it is our job, and we have went into the schools and done domestic violence classes, or we did a domestic violence basketball game where everything was about domestic violence. They wore purple. We had a discussion in halftime that maybe we could touch some young people's lives. We also passed out pamphlets as they walked in, because maybe that one pamphlet will help a young person to save their life or their friend's life. So we try to always stay within the community and help within our reach. So it's been challenging. It's always difficult. Everything in life is not always easy. We want to branch out where we can start a system of training stylists and barbers to recognize signs and symptoms. So that is in our goal and in our future, to write like a little training book as to what you see and what you recognize and which direction you should send them in, because it's not about your opinion, it's about facts and helping people to get to the right areas that may save somebody's life. So that's kind of what Cora's mission is, and we try to get out in the forefront and do activities so that people know who we are, know where to contact, how to contact us, so that we can give them the correct information to move them in the directions necessary to help other people. So we're kind of the middleman that is active in the community. Therefore, people are more friendly about talking to us because we don't have a badge, we don't have anything hurt you or hinder you of, saying you to the level of safety and how and where to send you, with whom to call. Augustine Abbott was our biggest advocate because we always can call her and she always can send us in the correct direction. So Mr. Art and I and Kalia always work hand in hand in a lot of events. And our last event for our Purple Ball this year, we worked hand in hand with Mr. Art. So we appreciate him. And in his role in our community is huge. And I think people don't really know, when you lose someone to domestic violence, you either do one or two things. You either ignore it and want to hide it, or you become an activist like Mr. Art. And he's been an activist for longest I have known him, and his daughter has been not with us for a long time. He, to his dying breath, he's going to be an activist. So I take my hat off to him, and we would like to pick up the baton where he hurt or touched by domestic violence to change somebody else's life or save someone else's life. So that's where we have been activated to do and who we are as a community activists. And it is challenging because we would like to have a role with the police officers because they always don't know what to do when they get sent to someone's home or how to treat a victim. So they feel like they can tell you everything. So those are the things that needs to be changed in our community, like system, like the system needs to work together as a unit instead of against each other sometimes. So I think we've taken up all our 7 minutes, and any questions that we possibly can answer, we definitely will. So,
and I do have a question in the chat.
Sure.
So the question is, or it states, I recently saw a news story on a hand signal that was used by a young woman for help. Can someone speak on that?
I don't know the hand signal, but I do know that domestic violence, or at least women, have had the opportunity, if they call 911 and they say, I want to order a pizza, then they automatically know that they're in a situation that's dangerous, or they need help without saying, hey, I need help, and letting the person that may be victimizing them know that they need help. So I do know that. I'm not sure of the hand movement. Does anybody else know it so that they can explain that?
So that was a TikTok presentation that someone had seen on TikTok, and it went viral. And and that's just from watching what the police, what the news report said. So maybe that's something that a domestic violence org in another town or city may have implemented or started. But even that's something we can apply, us all that's sitting here, even if you know someone. You don't have to have a letters behind your name or any specific titles. You can just tell anyone that you know, like, hey, if you know somebody that's dealing with domestic violence, try and look it up on TikTok and spread the word to somebody so that it can be known. And that's something that we can implement here locally.
Yeah, it was also originated because human trafficking victims. So if you look up the YouTube videos, it originally started with human trafficking victims, and it was signing basically the word help. And so, but then now it's kind of gone from, it's a little bit different. Like I know American Sign Language, and that's not it, but it's kind of like a derivative of that, but just an indication that you're someone who's in distress and that you need help. And so I think it's going to continue to kind of go as the younger generation continues to utilize that form of communication, nonverbal. So I think that those things will continue to be more common for people to be aware of, and then more useful for folks as a resource. I know a lot of the young kids are kind of about like signing without actually signing language. So, their gestures are just as strong as our verbal language. And so, yeah, you can look up a bunch of videos on YouTube of kind of folks reenacting those gestures or movements. There's some for if you're in a car and you're passing by somebody who's also been like kidnapped or in distress. They can indicate the same thing. It's kind of the same kind of hand movement, but it's a little bit different. And so there's multiple forms to indicate that you're in trouble.
Thank you, Ms. Durfee.
Thank you.
Ms. Purdue and Ms. Behringer, we thank you so much for doing what you do for Ms. Cora to keep her memory alive. What I would like to see is you guys getting most, if not all of our high schools. Dr. Jeffries is on this call, and we could probably set some things up when it comes to that. The things that you guys are doing is very, very powerful. So let's see how we can spread that. Even here locally on this Zoom and this awareness, domestic violence awareness program that's going on right now, you have a lot of people that can get you guys seen and shown with the passion that you have. And so we're going to keep that information and keep your that mission going on for Ms. Cora. I would like to now introduce to you guys Mr. Art Jones Jr. He is an advocate of no more violence. You guys might see those signs going up. He is the 501c3 of that. Arthur Jones Jr., a Jefferson Award winner recipient, is well known in Toledo for his passion to end domestic violence and to assure the rights of minorities. He served on the Black Chamber of Commerce and is an ardent supporter of minority businesses. He also served as president of the board of Bethany House. Mr. Jones, whose daughter was killed in the domestic violence incident and who served on the Lucas County Domestic Violence Task Force Board. In 2016, 26 women were killed in domestic violence homicides in Lucas County. 11 of those deaths occurred in Toledo. That he was imputed in that led Arthur S. Jones Jr. to call a meeting of the law enforcement, prosecutor staff, and shelter staff. Several of those attending were following members of the Lucas County Domestic Violence Task Force. On October 4th, 2017, after several meetings, the task force kicked off the No More Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault campaign. Mr. Jones.
And I'm going to probably repeat some of that there. I'm highly honored today to be with such beautiful women who share in what I share in. I'm going to give you a little story about my story and my advocacy work. In 1993, my 30-year-old daughter, Katrina Cooper, was murdered in a domestic violence incident. She left 3 children. Her mother raised her 16-year-old daughter, and my wife and I raised her 8 and 11-year-old son. All lives changed forever. Her children's lives, her siblings' lives, our extended family, and the perpetrator's children and extended family. The trauma and sorrow just feels unending. Such life changes and life-sharing events unfold again and again throughout the United States and around the world. What does one do when such a profound loss and anger? Yes, I was angry. My wife and I went to grief counseling, and we took Trina's son to counseling as well. They were traumatized. They not only lost her mother, but they were asleep in their bedroom while their mother lay injured in the living room. They were confused, scared, and angry. My wife and I and our extended family gave them the love and support needed to survive the loss of their mom. But I was a mess. I can't lie about it. I wanted revenge. I wanted him dead. My counselors told me to go to the woods and yell at the top of my lungs, to take a baseball bat and beat the trees. But my saving grace was Joan Coleman from the Lucas County Victims Witness Program. Her very wise counseling made me away from thinking of ways to get revenge. The lifeline Miss Coleman threw was asking me to speak with the junior high students about domestic violence. At each school's presentation, I told the girls, young ladies, you are beautiful and deserve love and respect. I spoke to the boys about how precious girls are and they should be loved and respected like they are their own sister or mom. Students in those junior high classes reveal their own encounter with disrespect and violence. It showed how much I knew. I was not aware that junior high school girls were already experiencing power and control encounters with their male classmates and teenage boys. But I think those classroom presentations were the start of turning my grief into action. I really wanted to stop domestic violence. I just didn't want to be another family to suffer the senseless loss of a loved one to domestic violence. In 2006, Bethany House, Toledo's only longtime shelter for survivors of domestic violence, asked me to join the board of trustees. During my tenure on this board, I served 2 terms as its chairman. Volunteering with Bethany House is one of the proudest things I've ever done. It was also a very productive period in which Bethany House progressed from a dorm shelter to acquiring a building providing survivors and their children with apartment housing. I have attended many candlelight vigils for women who were killed by their intimate partner. I noticed that the news crews and local television papers cover the sad news for days on end. People are touched. The community grieves with the families, but after the vigils and funerals, the public goes on with their lives, except for the friends or loved ones of the victim. As I said before, our lives are forever changed. But one vigil changed my focus. When I went to the candlelight vigil for Corey in 2016, I saw her infant son clinging to his grandpa, and I couldn't get that picture out of my mind. I felt that something had to be done. I'm not a social worker. I don't work on local governments. I'm not a media person, but I felt I had to bring these groups together to figure out what we could do in our community. So on May 11th, 2017, I called a meeting of law enforcement, prosecutors, local sheriff, county commissioners, and agency, serving people who are experiencing domestic violence or who have survived. They came to hear my plea to do something on a long-term and continuous bias. Some of them who attended the May 17th meeting were members of a Lucas County Domestic Violence Task Force. Women from the task force and I emphasize these women because it's another example of women getting things done. I give them all the credit. I call them women of action. They researched the issue and found the National Football League had founded the No More Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Initiative. And what's exciting, their materials are free of charge. Task force members asked for the Toledo Blade to print the material. The Blade printed it. They asked their friends and contacts for support. Next thing you know, a law firm arranged for the No More video to be filmed with local community leaders telling the community, no more. Local television stations ran the No More video and radio stations the same way, no more. It was all good. But a year after all this free value, they said, you got to start paying. As a community advocate and the only person not working to an agency or government, I volunteered to raise funds to keep the No More campaign alive. I did well the first 2 years, and then the Corona hit. Corona-19. As you know, the world about stopped, and so did my fundraising effort. The YMCA, who volunteered to be the fiscal agency for my fundraising, was a great partner. I give a big shout out to Ms. Lisa McDuffie and her helpful and patient staff. The YW even used some of their domestic violence prevention, great dollars, and aired the No More this past year in billboards. After that, I came to the resolution that the only way to fund No More for the long term was to become a non-profit organization. In May, No More Domestic Violence was created. And in September, I received my IRS letter of determination to allow donations to No More to be tax deductible. It has been a journey, but in some way the journey has just begun. I want to see no more awareness and prevention campaign expand in a way to personally touch the lives of survivors on their journey to become thrivers. I have a great board of directors. I know we will do what's input and feedback from people currently living with domestic violence or recovering from it. My wish list to accomplish this is to either expand our organization's mission or collaborate with other organizations to start an awareness and prevention work early so our young boys and girls can hear it. The schools have their hands full just educating our children, but there is a way to reach our children in other areas where they gather to boost our children's self-esteem so they don't feel the need to exert power and control over others. I also have a dream of more programming for men in every area where men are served to embrace loving, honoring, and cherishing their intimate partners. I'll just repeat as I've heard many domestic services say, love shouldn't hurt. Love shouldn't hurt.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. As always, you never cease to amaze. We love the words that come out your mouth and the passion that you have. Thank you so much, Mr. Jones, for being an advocate for domestic violence and initiating such a wonderful and much needed program. As we support our Jones program entitled No More, we will share with you again the domestic violence comes in many ways and that we need to truly pay attention and try to recognize some of the signs. Our collaborations organization steering committee will now share with you some of the different types of domestic violence reasonings. We will go back to that after we have our testimonial from Ms. Nunn. I apologize, Ms. Nunn. So right now, again, thank you, Mr. Art Jones Jr. I now have the opportunity and the pleasure of giving our testimonial, and that will be by Ms. Takara Nunn. Ms. Takara Nunn, a 36-year-old. She has 5 children, 4, 6, 10, 15, and 17 are their ages. She attended the University of Toledo and received her bachelor's in psychology in 2009 and her MSW in 2011. She now known, she would like to honor Miss Augustine. And she has been knowing Miss Augustine since her oldest child, which is 17 now, was 2 years old. We will now have Ms. Nunn speak about herself and Miss Augustine and give a good testimony. Ms. Nunn.
Hello, thank you for having me. Oh, this looks weird now that I'm talking, but I sent something to, I think it was Miss Brenda, that I had read with the at the domestic violence bar, and I'm not going to read it, but in that I'll just kind of talk about some of the things that I highlighted or that were important. And again, so I met Miss Augustine when my oldest daughter, so she was 2, and my oldest son was about 6 months. I met her because I came through her program, which was at the time, I think it was Project Genesis, and we were downtown. So I was sent there by Children's Services because they had removed my 2 children at the time out of my custody because of domestic violence, and it was repeated. They gave me chance after chance after chance, but it just continued. And so I was referred to Miss Augustine's program, and I always tell everybody we did not get along at first at all. Did not like each other. I didn't like her. She didn't like me. It was rough. She was very hard. I felt like she was hard on me, But as time went on, I started realizing that it wasn't that she was hard on me. It was that she cared, and she wanted me to realize the mistakes that I was making, but also that to continue to be in a situation where you're being physically abused or emotionally or verbally, that's not okay. No one should be putting their hands on you, be calling you anything other than, your name. And so she walked with me through that entire process. And it was very, very difficult because in dealing with a domestic violence situation, there are a lot of different entities involved, because if you're referred to children's services, you deal with that. They have services that they also want you to complete. It might be parenting, it might be anger management, it might be therapy, and you have to figure that out and kind of navigate your way through those systems while still trying to be a parent. And that's very is very difficult. So for me, Miss Augustine was a huge support. More than that, we grew very close. I'm still talk to her family to this day. We went to school together. She was just very, very kind. I think one of the main things that stood out for me was her always pushing me and reminding me that I do have a purpose. God has a purpose for me, and to not give up on myself. And had it not have been for her supporting me and being there with me, I mean, I cried, I called her fussing, cussing, whatever. Middle of the night, she was there. She prayed with me. She talked to me. She walked me through it. She held my hand. She never judged me. And had it have not been for her, I always say this, I would not have been a social worker. When I met her, I was in school to be a nurse. So I changed that around because I thought, man, she's helping a lot of women. She's helping us to get through this situation. And she didn't have to. And I think that's something that's missing now in the community, is that we all have jobs, but you have to have a passion for it. It can't just be a job. And for her, it was a passion. And there are plenty of times where even from her own house, she would go get food, bring it to me, bring it to my,
Keep going.
Okay. It really helps to have someone who doesn't just see you as a job or a project, but really see you as a person, and that truly wants to see the best for you. And so, she was a very strong person. I know someone said when we were just kind of talking before everything started, they wish that they could have met her. And in what I wrote for the bar, I described her as a pillar at the beginning. And that's very true, because had it not have been for her, many times I don't know how I would have quite gotten through those situations. I really don't.
Thank you for being her flower from her garden.
Thank you.
Awesome. Nice job. So she planted some seeds, and look at you.
Yes.
That's awesome. So that was awesome, Miss Nunn. And I'm hoping that you touched every last one and everyone that's actually on this Zoom and this actual awareness domestic violence Zoom. So I'm hoping someone got something out of that. So that was not in vain, everything that you went through. Not in vain. Keep that smile, and you start throwing your own seeds out so you can see, so that you see your flowers. The good thing is you did change your major, so you're helping lives as well.
Yes, thank you.
That's an awesome thing. So our panelists is just awesome. You guys are you're just awesome. We had a dictionary, we got seeds, we got flowers, we got a father that's just passionate, and we gotta highlight you all. I thank God that you all took the time out to even come on and say, I do want somebody to hear what I have to say. So thank you again, Miss Nunn. I would like to also say is that it's never too much you getting the speech at the podium. Is the steps it took to get there. So let's keep that in mind as well. to everyone that's on the Zoom. I thank you again for all of our panelists. And I also thank you, Ms. Nunn, for your testimony.
Thank
We are
you.
now at the question stage. As we know, domestic violence has been on a rise since COVID-19 and is not limited by age, sex, or gender. We now have Ms. Trevor Jeffries, Dr. Trevor Jeffries, who is the first vice president from Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Inc. Zelta Alpha Omega chapter, along with Ms. Cassandra Adams from Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Inc. to enter our questions and answers segment.
Thank you so much. Let me make sure that there are no questions. We actually have just a bunch of wonderful comments, wonderful
Oh,
testimony
awesome.
of advocacy and caring, so informative and awesome information and programs. Thanks to everyone for your presentation. If we do have any questions, if you would just drop it in the chat, or if you raise your hand, we'll acknowledge you and you can ask any questions to any of the panelists at this time.
So I have some questions for Ms. Purdue and Ms. Behringer. Would you ladies like to, how would you ladies like to go forward with speaking and making awareness to domestic violence? I know Mr. Arthur touched on the junior high age realm. So how would you ladies, do you ladies actually have a schedule and a time that if we get into those schools and even those daycares, because daycares now have school age children in them, would you guys like to go in and make that awareness?
Most definitely. I'm pretty sure Sonia will say the same thing as well.
Well, what I would like to say is that, believe it or not, TPS has amount of hours that they're supposed to, every high school should have some kind of domestic violence.
They do. They're with
However,
the YWCA DARTS.
Okay. And I know that that was originally when we started our programming, we wanted to do one of the big basketball games or one of the big football games, because if we can just, we don't have to drag them there and they're already there. If they can take a pinch of what we said and change or help someone else, then we are doing our job in educating, because education has to be told over and over before it's grasped. So we just need to be able to get in the community schools and be able to have days, or, you know, a day that everybody knows, oh, that's our domestic violence day. You know, that's the day that, you know, we all wear purple, because once you try to do the work, help young people understand that, because I think a lot of teenagers, because they're so into themselves, and they'd be like, oh, he just slapped me, but I just slapped him back. Well, no, none of that is appropriate. And so we have to get into their understanding that that is not appropriate. That is not love. That is not what we do to be in a relationship. But there's some crookedness going on, and it's growing by the yards of what relationships are or aren't. And that's where we need to start. And Mr. Art is absolutely right. We do need to start at a younger age, because relationships don't occur till 8th grade, 7th grade, or at least they think they liking each other. You know, by 9th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, they think that they're in serious relationships and become very possessive. They become possessions rather than people in relationships. So we need to change thought patterns, and getting into schools will be helpful to that. But having games, having activities that people know, oh, that's that game every year. If it's Scott and Rogers football, or where there's a lot of people, it's always going to be a domestic violence game. Then we're just smaller arenas. That's what we want to do.
Okay, so I thank you for that. I just needed to know if you guys were willing.
We do have another question.
With me being a company owner, I just wanted to make sure that when we start saying, okay, we would like for you to get in these small groups, were you guys willing to do so?
Absolutely.
All right, so we got some questions for you guys. Go right ahead.
Yes, we have a question that says, has there been an increase in domestic violence regarding children since COVID-19?
Ms. Durfee, would that be a question for you?
I was typing in the chat, sorry. Yeah, so the referrals for FCAPC for our Children Who Witness Violence program have increased greatly since COVID, but not during the initial COVID when it was shelter in place, obviously, because kiddos didn't have access to anybody to report to since schools were closed down and Zoom was, or, you know, Google Classroom was like their way of being able to communicate. So it didn't start right away, but now that once students went back into session in person and were able to start getting to those trusted safety adults that they could report to, disclosures started going up for at least children who witnessed or were witnessing or hearing domestic violence in the home. But I think Cassandra Adams can speak more to like if like child abuse, meaning domestic violence went up if it was child abuse.
Well, yes, I mean, at Children's Services, our DVs did triple with COVID-19. We still got DV reports, but because law enforcement was still available and still assessing calls, so we still did get quite a few reports dealing with domestic violence at Children's Services.
Right, Ms. Adams, right.
Okay, so we have another question. It says, what percentage of men are victims of DV?
So allegedly, I mean, the statistics that are always thrown out there are 95% reported female, 5% reported male. But we know that those numbers are changing constantly.
Yeah, I agree. That's
I apologize.
reported.
I thought maybe Miss Jeffries was talking, but I think she was muted. I saw your mouth move. Yes, ma'am. So I believe she was also answering as well, but yes. So we know that those statistics are changing, but right now I just don't think that they've done any current research to give us any good numbers. We just know that it's increasing, especially with the fact that gender identification is also changing. And so we know that there's going to be some more differentiations in that reporting with non-binary, you know, and oh geez, I can't remember all of them. Don't kill me, I promise.
Transgender or asexual, non-binary, yes. Thank you for that answer. So I'm going to go ahead and actually I was mouthing the next question. I was reading it. I'm sorry. And then Ms. Adams will ask the next question too. I'm going to ask this one from Ms. McWilliams. Are females that are involved in DV encouraged to talk to detectives? A lot of women will not. Did we already ask that question?
I don't think it's been asked. I didn't hear it. So I'm not sure if they're in. So the only time a detective is involved is if there's allegations that the charge is going to be a felony. And so if the charge is at a misdemeanor level, detectives don't get involved. It's the charging officer on the scene who writes the report. That's what gets submitted. And then it goes from there. If the officer is called for testimony because they witnessed something at the scene, that would be the only reason why they're included throughout the process of like prosecution. But detectives are involved if there's a felony charge that's going to be associated. And luckily for us in Toledo, the Toledo Police Department has a domestic violence designated detective. It's a one-person unit, and she is a female. It has continued to be staffed by a female gendered identified individual for as long as I've been in the community, so about 11 years. And I think prior to that as well. So we're lucky here that it is. Although I will let you know that I currently have a male advocate on staff. And that's because I've done a lot of research to better understand There's a great stigma that goes behind the fact that maybe a female victim doesn't want to talk to any male identified gendered individual after any kind of assault, physical, sexual, emotional, financial, whatever. And so I really was curious as to that statistic and that stigma. And then in my research, I found that that's not true, and that victims don't report that. And so I actually have a male on staff as an advocate at Toledo Municipal Court, because I do think that diversity and inclusion for all populations to be advocated for. So Marcus is a great asset to my team, and I truly appreciate him being there. So I think women have a perceived notion that they don't want to talk to a male, but a detective, I think that just goes to say for like law enforcement in general, victims are very not voluntary to work with most law enforcement if they've had prior communication or contact with law enforcement and it wasn't positive. So that's kind of how that results from that statistic.
Okay, we have another question that says, what are some ways that police have problems helping domestic violence victims?
Sorry to jump in. I think the thing that we get the most of is that law enforcement will come to us, especially when we do trainings, and they're not prepared. They don't know community resources. Most of law enforcement who are on the street and are charging officers, meaning who are responding to these domestic violence calls, are usually officers within the first 5 years of their service, and they are not typically educated on community resources, how to access those, how to get folks the information, or even have the information themselves to be able to relay that to survivors. So I think that's the biggest barrier for law enforcement to really get involved like they want to, is they just don't have the knowledge or the resources. But I do think that Toledo Police Department is taking a very big step forward and doing their DALE, their danger assessment for law enforcement. So they are being educated on a questionnaire for victims that assess their lethality and their victimization. And so then they're given CRT, the crisis response team's number, immediately on scene. So those officers do have that information. And then they're able to connect via telephone. If CRT can't respond to the scene, they can at least go over telephone. An advocate can then be connected to the survivor right on the scene and give them those community resources, or at least make some note that they're needed, and then hopefully with a follow-up conversation. I won't speak to how CRT works because I don't work for CRT, nor do they work for me. So, but I do know that those resources are available, and that law enforcement, especially our Chief Carl, is very serious about getting that education to his new officers if they're going to be on patrol. And so I think he also is a very big advocate for the DALE being used to try to reduce our domestic violence homicide rate.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Okay, we will turn it back over to our moderator.
Thank you, Dr. Jeffries and Ms. Adams. Ms. Darby, you continue on with that information that you have and being in encyclopedia and dictionary. You are rocking. I thank you so much for being on this call and can answer questions and things like that. We are now at the closing of our program. Ms. Lexi, I don't know if you would like to do a picture of everyone at this moment, but before the end, let me bring in Ms. Linda Collins, who is a member of the Maumee Bay Negro, excuse me, I just drank some water, NANBPWC Program Director of National Sorority and Phi Delta Kappa Sorority. So Ms. Lexi, would you like to take the group picture right now, or?
What I'll do, I will let Miss Linda do her closing, and then we'll put up an informational slide while everyone is doing the evaluation, and I'll take the picture then.
Awesome. Ms. Collins, you're on.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank all who have attended this program. Thank you for taking the time out of your afternoon to spend with us to get some valuable information. I'd like to thank Mr. Art, Ms. Kalia, Ms. Cassandra, Ms. Sonia. Thank you for spending your time to give us information that's going to be very beneficial for us to take out to the community. So at this time, I'm asking that everyone, please, this information is so important. Let's not keep it here. Let's take it out to our communities, share with our family members, our co-workers, what we have learned here today, because we know everyone who wasn't able to be on this call and to get this information firsthand. So let us take this information out to the public. And also, let's uplift the people who are out there doing the work. Let's support them in any way possible. We thank you again. This was an awesome program, and everyone have a good evening.
Thank you, Ms. Collins.
Okay, I'm going to share some informational slides with everyone now. And so the evaluation link is in the chat box. Would you please click on the link and complete the brief evaluation for the program today? Excuse me, thank you very much.
Log off too soon.
When you're done with the evaluation, you can go ahead and exit, but this final slide here, if you know someone who is in need of assistance, if you can screenshot that or take a picture of it, these are some resources that can help. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for attending this domestic violence awareness Zoom. You guys have a blessed evening.
Thank you.
You too.
Yeah. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
You as well, thank you.
You as well.
Alexi, would you like to get a picture of everyone who's currently here if you stop sharing?
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Did you get that picture? Did
But I
she
can
get
get it.
it?
I'll get another one.
Oh, okay. Because I know I didn't have my camera off.
Oh, okay. Turn it on. I'll get one real quick.